I've had this issue where I got the Dyson V11 Torque, and with the battery all the way in, it seems that you press a trigger and it stays on. It's hard to turn off, so I'm sure some folks are having that same issue, but all the disassembly videos I found don't get into the deep areas of the trigger here. So basically the problem's happening. It's either this pin is too high up, and I don't want to take apart this whole battery, or there's a red pin that sits down in there. You can barely see it. There's a red pin. That's the trigger pin. You press a trigger, that red plastic pin down there is on a spring, and what it does is it presses down on the black pin that's on the battery and causes the whole the vacuum to turn on and off. So either this is too tall or that red pin inside is too long, so it's too sensitive and it just keeps this pin depressed all the time. So I'm trying to find a way to shave it down, that pin. Like I said, there was nobody that was disassembling this whole internal area here, so I got down into further taking apart this whole part here, and you're gonna have the two battery terminals here that you're going to need to disconnect, and this little connector that hooks up on the circuit board right here. So gently try not to mess anything up on the circuit board. The problem with the terminals is that they lay flat at 90 degrees, so it's hard to take it out. So you have to carefully try to bend the terminals without cracking any of the plastic or damaging the circuit board. So once you get that, you're able to jiggle this off, so then all of this whole assembly comes out. Now you have access, I would say, to these two screws here, which probably will allow you to pull this whole trigger assembly out and have access to that pin. So I'll be back in another video, hopefully, to show how that's done. Okay. So there are two screws here that you have to remove, and if you have a thin enough Torque screwdriver, you can angle the screwdriver in this way and get the two screws out. Then there are two tabs here. You have to gently push them back. But before you do that, there's a screw that sits way down in there. It's basically another Torque screw, and you can see it when you shine a light on it. You can see the screw, it kind of holds that assembly in there. So it seems like I'm able to bend these contact terminals. All right, so once you get, you have to straighten them out, but once you get these the battery terminals, the little wire, just be careful you don't break anything. Once you're able to slide it out through here, you can slide this whole assembly out. There you go. So this is the spring I'm talking about here. Oh. Oh, looks like I broke this part here. All right, so this pin here, somehow it's just pressing down too far onto the battery. So I'm gonna see if I shave this down and it solves my problem. All right, thanks for watching. So what I did was I gently snapped off the red trigger. Don't spread these two legs too far apart. You'll end up breaking this, the trigger, the legs here. And I don't know where you'd be able to get a replacement anyhow. What I did was I trimmed with a hot scalpel. The plastic was much higher here. So when this trigger, when the battery actuator pushed up on this pin, it would stop around right there. And then I think the battery actuator just was, the contact was too sensitive, the battery kept running. So now with allowing the battery actuator pin or the motor actuator pin on the battery push up a little further, that disengages it a bit. So I'm gonna see if that works. I'm gonna put everything back together. Okay, I finally got the unit all back together. You have to put the filter on, otherwise it won't run. The battery, as you can see, it's reinstalled. The screws are in, the back screw. It's fully flushed, as it should be. And then now we pull the trigger. Now the machine, now it turns on and off like it should. I did break the plastic screw slot that sits in here that keeps the trigger assembly. But it seems with all the other screws put together and the battery in and connected, everything is pretty solid, so nothing is going to be moving around. So not necessarily a deal breaker. I just over tightened it and it just snapped that little plastic housing. So just be careful with that when over tightening. Put everything back together. Had to bend the two contacts up very carefully, pop back in the little double wire that connected to the circuit board that you saw in the first video, and put all the screws back in. Put the filter in. Now it turns on and off like it should. And the battery is fully in. It's funny, these vacuums have neodymium magnets in there, so when the motor stops and sort of decouples, it slows down the armature, the spinning, and you can hear like a hum or a boing. So that's just normal to these machines. All right, hope you enjoyed.